ब्लॉग नहीं करते इंटरेस्टिंग नहीं है और इसलिए मैं बड़ी कर रही पीछे
Mortal remains of General Bipin Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika Rawat now being taken. Their two daughters right behind them. That's Tarini and Kritika, left and right. To the final site where the funeral pyre will be lit in just minutes from now. The final salute and then the funeral pyre which the family will have the sorrow and the privilege of lighting. The Brar Square Crematorium has two different sections, one place for the wreath laying and one place for where, along with firewood, the funeral pyres are lit, and that is where the two caskets are headed to now. Let's listen in.
Excuse madam.
Gorkha rifles, as you can see, with their kukris, their ceremonial daggers. That's how you can very well make them out. Gorkha rifles, Gorkha soldiers, they're part of the ceremonials for this final rites. Remember that General Bipin Rawat was from the Gorkha Rifles Regiment. So many Gorkhali rituals as part of the final rites to the departed general. 3-star officers of the 3 services. Now taking the tricolour that draped the casket of General Bipin Rawat as well as Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, so that the caskets can now move to the final site for the funeral pyre.
जनरल बिपिन रावत के अंतिम संस्कार का आखिरी पड़ाव। जनरल बिपिन रावत के अंतिम संस्कार का आखिरी पड़ाव, जहां उनके पार्थिव शरीर को अग्नि को समर्पित किया जाना है।
The family of General and Mrs. Rawat will light the funeral pyre. This is the place where the eternal flame will be lit, and the final act, the final farewell will be accorded to General Bipin Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, 2 Gorkha soldiers handling the mortal remains, the caskets, and bringing them to their final resting place now, from where the flames will be lit. There are private family rituals which have been conducted, and they will be conducted here when the flame is lit as well. And the reason, viewer, that I don't want to talk much over these images is because the silence at the ceremony is itself the message. So I want you to be able to hear the silence during this final act.
कहाँ लगाओ बताओ, तुम्हारे को जगह बताओ कहाँ लगाने है। ये तो VIP यहाँ लगवा दो। हाँ वहीं करते हैं। दोनों आ जाएगा ना। हाँ मुझे बता। इधर आएगा, इधर कभी आएगा। करो किसी को जाएगा। ये लगाओ ना, इसी के साथ आगे लगा दो साइड में। दोनों कारण से आपके
रक्षा मंत्री राजनाथ सिंह, उत्तराखंड के मुख्यमंत्री
थोड़ा सा बाकी सारे मूवी आ गए
सर। पीछे से मंत्री जी देख रहे हैं।
भारत के मित्र देशों के वरिष्ठ
भारत माता की, भारत के वीर सपूतों की, वंदे मातरम, भारत माता की, भारत बिपिन रावत, भारत बिपिन रावत, भारत माता की।
In just minutes from now, In just minutes from now, the flame will be lit. The final ritual is about to be complete. 4:45 p.m. is the time that was designated for the lighting of the funeral pyre. The 17-gun salute will also take place, and then we will see the last post performed by the Tri-Services band that is assembled there. There is a crowd all around that, as you can imagine, to pay their final respects and their final goodbye. Many of the people you see on your screen right now are those who worked at the Department of Military Affairs, who worked with General Bipin Rawat, family, friends, persons from the military who were connected to General Bipin Rawat when he was Chief of the Army Staff, before he took over as Chief of Defence Staff, the country's first. They're all there today, and they're all near the caskets right before these final rituals are conducted. And then the flame, the eternal flame, is lit for their final journey. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh was there to lay a wreath. He was there in the morning for Brigadier Liddar as well. You can see the Uttarakhand Chief Minister, the Minister of State for Defence.
अमर रहेगी ए वीर तुम्हारी अमर कहानी, युग युग तक गूंजेगी तुम्हारी गाथा ए वीर बलिदानी। कर दिया तन मन न्यौछावर अपना, करने को पूरा सबका सपना, दे रहा पूरा भारत तुमको सलामी। अमर रहेगी ए वीर तुम्हारी अमर कहानी। देश के प्रथम चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ जनरल बिपिन रावत, जिनका अंतिम संस्कार नई दिल्ली के बरार स्क्वायर में किया जा रहा है। जब जब त्याग और बलिदान का जिक्र होगा, जब जब देश के प्रति जीने का जिक्र होगा, जब जब देशभक्ति की बात होगी, तब तब जनरल बिपिन रावत को भी ज़रूर याद किया जाएगा, जिनके लिए देश और देशभक्ति सर्वोपरि रही। देश सुरक्षा के लिए उन्होंने अपना सब कुछ दांव पर लगा दिया, पूरा जीवन देश के लिए जिया। देशभक्ति का सबक अपने पिता से सीखते हुए जब वो सेना में शामिल हुए, तब से लेकर अब तक उन्होंने अपना सारा जीवन सिर्फ देश के लिए जिया। जब जब जो जिम्मेदारी उन्हें दी गई, उसका निर्वहन उन्होंने अपनी पूरी क्षमता के साथ किया, और यही कारण है कि हर मिशन में वो सफल रहे। अपने रणनीतिक कौशल, अपने जज्बे से उन्होंने देश की सुरक्षा को हर मायने में सुनिश्चित किया। चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ बनने के बाद भी जो जिम्मेदारी उन्हें दी गई, पिछले 2 सालों में उन्होंने उसका बखूबी निर्वहन किया। चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ के तौर पर जो लक्ष्य हासिल करना है वो छोटा नहीं है, लेकिन उसे हासिल करने के लिए उन्होंने हर स्तर पर प्रयास किए। एक मजबूत आधार दिया चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ के पद को भी और चीफ ऑफ डिफेंस स्टाफ के आगे आने वाले कार्यों को भी।
बाबा का नाम मम्मी का नाम लेके विष्णु परंपरा सत्य दीपिका पंचमाली तपो प्रतिष्ठा मानसिक आदर के पास हरि ओम शासन का परमेश्वर महादेव की बात करें आत्मा से मां बात करें ईश्वर भगवान अपना नाम लो बिना नाम का भक्त का उच्चारण करना है अमुक नाम भूत नाम देवता देवक नाम प्रतिज्ञा अपने पूज्य बेटे पापा का मम्मी का नाम लेके इससे ब्रह्मता रुद्रसा पंचभाषा पंचमाली तपो प्रतिष्ठा आगे जो बेटा नाम के पास में हरि ओम शासन परमेश्वर महादेव की बात करें आत्मा से मां से ईश्वर भगवान अपना नाम लो बिना नाम का भक्त का उच्चारण करना है अमुक नाम भूत नाम देवता देवक प्रतिज्ञा अपने पूज्य बेटे मम्मी पापा का नाम लेके बुद्ध का उच्चारण करना शिशु नाम क्या दूसरी भाषा पंचमाली तपो
अंदर जाऊंगा तो केवल पकड़
हरि ओम शासन महादेव की बात करें आत्मा से मां से ईश्वर नाम अपना नाम लो पुत्र का उच्चारण करना है अमुक नाम भूत नाम देवता देवक प्रतिज्ञा अपने पूज्य बेटे पापा मम्मी का नाम लेके किसी अपना रोजसा देवती पंचमाली तपो प्रतिष्ठा संजोग मास में जो बेटा आगे है भाई पूजा का हरि ओम महाप्रो ओम अस्वापनम त्रिपुरम पृथ्वी नमः रघुनाथम पंचदेवं देगा पुरुषवर्णम पृथ्वी नमः ये रुषा थोड़ा थोड़ा ओम मधुवादातम प्रियादातम पृथ्व्या मधुवाम गंगासम पृथ्वी नमः एक हाथी का मस्त वासन चंद्रम पृथ्वी नमः एक नीचे पांडव को खंबासन चंद्र पृथ्वी नमः ये लोग छाती करो छाती करो आदि करो ओम अश्वापति शरीर पृथ्वी नमः कोई परिवार का भी कोई दादा कोई हाथ में अपना भाई चलो इधर आ जाएगा इधर वाला बेटा अपने हाथ से फैली से माथी से लेके पैरों तक बांध दो सुगंधम पाक हम शिवम को तेरे महा आप भी इधर से डाल एक और राहुल अंदर सारा डालो सब डालो देना ये लो इसको बाहर कर दो और दोनों हाथों से मुट्ठी करो माथे से लेके पैर सरों में खड़ा ये लो सभी लोग थोड़ी थोड़ी सामग्री ले लीजिए और डालो ओम वाचवे स्वाहा ओम रूपे स्वाहा ओम द्रव्येश्वराय स्वाहा ओम जासाय स्वाहा ओम व्यक्तिहाय स्वाहा ओम अनंतकालाभ्याय स्वाहा ओम मृत्युकालाभ्याय स्वाहा पुष्पभ्याय स्वाहा बेटा आप ही एक लकड़ी बना सकते हो बेटा अपने हाथ में साथी रखो ओम सभी ओम हाथ जोड़ो अनादि देवा संकट से मुक्त मतलब से ओम नमः दवा दवा बस आप बाहर आके मुझे थोड़ा पीछे करो साथ थोड़ा जल्दी चलो जरा थोड़ा साइड से लकड़ी उठवानी है हां दे लकड़ी दे सभी लोग सामने थोड़ा नीचे उतरते जाइएगा थोड़ा हटते जाए थोड़ा नीचे थोड़ा
जिन्होंने डाल दिया रिक्वेस्ट को बाहर हो जाए जिन्होंने डाल दिया वो प्लीज बाहर हो जाए प्लीज बाहर हो जाए
The funeral pyre has been lit, the eternal flame. Both General Bipin Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika Rawat in the same pyre. It's perhaps unprecedented and truly a reflection of what a sad, painful moment this is for the family, for the military, for the country. Not a dry eye there at the Brar Square crematorium as India's first Chief of Defence Staff is consigned to the flames with his wife of many years, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, right there next to him. The mood reflected in the silence there on the ground. The eternal flames now leaping and sending General Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika on their final eternal journey.
जनरल बिपिन रावत और उनकी पत्नी मधुलिका रावत का पार्थिव शरीर जो अग्नि को समर्पित कर दिया गया है। अंतिम संस्कार की पूरी विधि उनकी दोनों बेटियों ने पूरी की, जिन्होंने अपने माता और अपने पिता को मुखाग्नि दी। जनरल बिपिन रावत को उनके अंतिम संस्कार के समय 17 तोपों की सलामी दी गई। पूर्ण सैन्य सम्मान के साथ जनरल बिपिन रावत का अंतिम संस्कार किया गया। रक्षा मंत्री राजनाथ सिंह जो इस अवसर पर स्वयं यहां मौजूद रहे हैं, उनकी दोनों बेटियों को ढाढ़स बंधाते हुए उनके प्रति कृतज्ञता अर्पित करते हुए रक्षा मंत्री राजनाथ सिंह। तीनों सेनाओं के सैन्य प्रमुख भी यहां उपस्थित हैं। उससे पहले भी हमने देखा किस तरह उनकी अंतिम यात्रा में समाज का हर वर्ग शिरकत कर रहा था। क्या बच्चे, क्या बड़े, क्या बूढ़े।
Images that you're witnessing,
अंतिम यात्रा में
the images that you're witnessing
और बरार स्क्वायर पर
bring to an end
उनकी चिता
the final rites and farewell ceremony for General Bipin Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika Rawat. The emotions on the ground perhaps cannot be described. There are hundreds of military personnel who've assembled there.
जनरल बिपिन रावत, जिनका तमिलनाडु के कुन्नूर में एक हेलीकॉप्टर हादसे में निधन हो गया। जनरल रावत और उनकी पत्नी के अलावा 11 अन्य सैन्य अधिकारी जिन्होंने इस हादसे में अपनी जान गंवाई। ब्रिगेडियर लीडर का भी आज सवेरे ही अंतिम संस्कार किया गया है। उसके बाद सुलूर से जनरल रावत और उनके साथ 12 अन्य लोगों के पार्थिव शव जो कल पालम एयरपोर्ट लाए गए। कल रात प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने भी पालम एयरपोर्ट जाकर जनरल बिपिन रावत, उनकी पत्नी और अन्य सैन्य अधिकारियों और दिवंगत सैन्य अधिकारियों को अपने श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित किए। आज सुबह से ही जनरल बिपिन रावत के निवास स्थान पर उनका पार्थिव शरीर रखा गया, जहां हर आमो खास ने आकर अपनी श्रद्धांजलि अर्पित की, अपने श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित किए और देश के इस शूरवीर वीर सपूत को नमन किया।
In these images that the dignitaries, including Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, have begun to depart from the last rites ceremony. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh was there for every ceremony since the mortal remains arrived in the national capital last evening. And you're looking at images now of the Defence Minister who is about to leave from the crematorium after having stayed and paid his respects to India's first Chief of Defence Staff and Mrs. Madhulika Rawat. They've been consigned to the flames. Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Naravane there, the National Security Advisor, BJP MP Rajyavardhan Singh Rathore, who is also an army veteran, is also there. Well, this brings to a close the last rites ceremonies for India's first Chief of Defence Staff. I want to bring in Aishwarya Paliwal. Aishwarya, the Defence Minister has just left. The eternal flames are burning. General Rawat and his wife, Mrs. Madhulika, are on their final journey. It's just still so much disbelief, Aishwarya, at this point of time as we watch these images of the burning funeral pyre, the family of General and Mrs. Rawat, Kritika and Tarani, the daughters there, the gun salute. These images, a surreal reminder that this terrible tragedy that everyone just hoped was a nightmare or a bad dream is all too real, and it's coming to an end now, Aishwarya.
Yes, Shiv, it all is coming to an end. We have seen since morning how dignitaries were at the Brar Square. We are now seeing, just a couple of minutes back, Rajnath Singh, the Defence Minister, left. Arvind Kejriwal is now leaving in one of these cars. Rajyavardhan Rathore too is now leaving. So all the dignitaries are now leaving the cremation ground, the crematorium. Arvind Kejriwal just left. We are seeing Rajyavardhan Rathore too. And let me tell you, Shiv, Rajyavardhan Rathore in fact was amongst the first dignitaries who reached the spot. He was here around 8:30 in the morning before the cremation of Brigadier Leader actually began. And now he is amongst the last people to leave. All these cars that you are saying, we are standing right outside all
the army personnel too, making their way, all of them now leaving. You very rightly pointed, family, when the two daughters go back home, the vacuum that they will feel, we cannot even imagine what they must be feeling like. Once everyone moves away, the two daughters are the ones the vacuum of what has happened. More dignitaries now on their way, just leaving. We are seeing the former chiefs also now making their way, all of them leaving the crematorium after paying their tribute, after paying their respect to the first CDS, General Bipin Rawat and his wife. These are the images we are bringing to you live from right outside Barar Square. Crematorium is inside the Delhi cantonment. We are seeing the generals now leaving, army officials leaving, all of them now going back after paying their tribute. Rajyavardhan Rathore too, the CM of Uttarakhand, just leaving now. Rajyavardhan Rathore still waiting there, still waiting. He was
just taking over for a moment to talk our viewers over those visuals. That was the new Chief of the Naval Staff, Admiral R. Harikumar, along with the outgoing Navy Chief, Admiral Karambir Singh, who were also there to pay their respects. Sense of disbelief still, looking at these surreal, absolutely surreal images of the eternal flame. How many times General Bipin Rawat has saluted the eternal flame of India's heroes, those who've been lost in conflict, those who've been killed in action, in terror and combat. He has saluted the Amar Jawan Jyoti so many times. And today General Bipin Rawat is consigned to that very same flame, the eternal flame of every soldier, along with his wife, Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, who was an integral part of military life right through the life of General Bipin Rawat. A flame that is an integral part of the ceremonies of all military functions, now sending General Rawat and his wife on their final journey. Our defense editor Abhishek Bhalla is also with me live. Abhishek has just returned from Wellington. He was reporting from the ground on the ceremonies that had actually begun in Wellington in Tamil Nadu yesterday in the morning. And today he's here in Delhi for the final rites of General Bipin Rawat. That sense of disbelief, of it not sinking in, is still there in the air. Abhishek, as we continue to see these pictures, the defense minister has left from here. Rajyavardhan Singh Rathore, the other dignitaries had started to leave. The family of General Bipin Rawat is still there, and it is on their shoulders, Abhishek, finally. Despite all this adulation, these public crowds, the huge numbers of service personnel who are there to show their solidarity and sympathy, it is ultimately on the shoulders of the family that the sorrow must be borne now.
Shiv, more than 800 service personnel were there today, right from General Bipin Rawat's residence till here when he was finally laid to rest. And Barar Square crematorium has been a resting place for many a military legend, and certainly General Bipin Rawat will be remembered as a legend in years to come. For many reasons, he was the first Chief of Defence Staff, had an illustrious career in the army, was the army chief, has served in extremely sensitive and important positions. So he really ticked all the boxes. But nobody really believed that he would go so soon and in this manner, because he had a great task ahead of him, a big mandate as the CDS. So that void is difficult to be filled. But as they say, as the cliche goes, life has to go on. The Indian military will have to very soon find a successor for him, because the position that he was holding and the vision that he and the government had for a reformed military cannot wait. It cannot have any further delays. So that's going to be one big challenge on who the next CDS is. But otherwise, of course, once all the glare gets away from his demise, it's the family that will have to come to terms in a completely different way. And as dusk sets in Delhi, the funeral pyre is still lit and is fresh inside this crematorium at Barar Square, where several soldiers have been laid to rest.
Incredibly somber images. There are no words really to describe the images that we're seeing right now. You can only imagine what it's like for Kritika and Tarini Rawat, who've lost both their parents in the blink of an eye, in the same accident, the same day, the same moment, that same helicopter crash. And they will return to an empty house today, surrounded by their loved ones, of course, surrounded by their well-wishers, the support structure of the family that they still have. But they've lost their mother and father. And their mother and father were in a helicopter along with 11 others. And not for a moment do I want any of our viewers to think that we will not be similarly covering the last rites and funerals of each and every one of the persons who was on board that helicopter. Brigadier Liddar was consigned to the flames this morning at this very site. We brought that to you, as we will the story of every other individual on that helicopter. Wing Commander P.S. Chauhan, the pilot, Squadron Leader Kuldeep Singh, the co-pilot, and the 9 others who were on board that helicopter and who sadly and tragically perished in that horrifying catastrophe. And as we bring you these final images of the eternal flame sending General Rawat and Mrs. Rawat on their eternal journey, I also want to remind our viewers that far away from this site, this is Delhi that you're looking at, but far away from this site at the Command Hospital in Bengaluru, Group Captain Varun Singh, the sole survivor of this tragedy that has taken the lives of General Rawat, Mrs. Rawat and 11 others, continues to fight for his life. He suffered extensive burn injuries, multiple organs have failed. Doctors from across the board, the burn unit and elsewhere, are working to stabilize him. He's on life support and hoping to bring the young fighter pilot back to health. He's not conscious, so he won't be able to know what's happening here at the Brar Square crematorium, sadly. There is every hope that he will be revived and make a full recovery. All prayers, including prayers here at the Brar Square, are for those who are lost and for the one man who survived. That's him. That's Group Captain Varun. The Indian Air Force has told us that they will try and bring us more information and a health update on Group Captain Varun later this evening. I promise to bring that to you. And at this time, we can tell you that it's not looking good. He's in a very critical, very serious condition right now. He is critical but stable. He's on life support. And all of our prayers, the prayers of the hundreds of military personnel who are at the Brar Square, are also praying for Group Captain Varun Singh, the sole survivor of this tragedy. The nation has bid farewell in the most Indian way possible. Now, that's the only phrase I can use, the most Indian way possible. This was a farewell to General Bipin Rawat and his wife, Madhulika Rawat. A farewell that he would probably have chuckled at, but it was one befitting the man that he was. It was for the grieving family, the couple's 2 daughters, who you see on your screen right now, Kritika and Tarini, to bid their father and mother farewell. The funeral pyre was lit by General Rawat's family. Over 800 service personnel were there. There was a gun salute that you're looking at on your screen right now. Amidst the grief and pain, the military conducted itself with incredible dignity and precision, bringing General and Mrs. Rawat into Delhi's Brar Square for this final journey. The mortal remains of India's first Chief of Defence Staff and his wife were carried across Delhi amidst scenes of huge solidarity, sympathy, sorrow and faith. And these are the images that we've seen right through the day as the country bid General Bipin Rawat a sorrowful farewell. Their mortal remains were earlier kept at his residence, as you can see in these pictures, for public viewing, for the nation to pay their final tributes. General Rawat's daughters, along with their families, including the Chief of Defence Staff's grandson, paid an emotional tribute to General Rawat. But still, with a sense of deep disbelief, incredulity really, that we're looking at a once vibrant couple, the first family of the Indian military, in two flag-draped caskets on their final journey. Images of General and Bipin Rawat in happier times when they were alive, contrasting so painfully with these images of them being consigned to the flames today. The bitter irony, the bitter sorrow and sadness washing over everyone at Brar Square and every one of you watching as we bring this story to you. Abhishek Bhalla continues to be with me. Abhishek, the final act is complete. The eternal flame is burning. The country's first Chief of Defence Staff and his wife have begun their eternal journey. Who would ever have thought that we would be reporting a story like this? You and me, Abhishek, certainly didn't ever expect to be on the front lines of a story of this kind for our viewers. And I wish we never ever had to do this. But the eternal flame is burning, Abhishek, and now there is work to be done, as General Bipin Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika themselves would have said, that let's get on with it. There's work to be done. There is a successor to be anointed. There is all the projects of theaterization and so many other things to be looked at. There is the welfare of military wives and widows to take care of. So many responsibilities that these two individuals had, and the wagon must move on. The show must go on, Abhishek.
Most definitely, Shiv. And, General Rawat as CDS had so much on his platter. Back-to-back assignments. And then the first Chief of Defence Staff, it was unprecedented. There were no SOPs on how the office of CDS is going to function. He wears two hats, one as the CDS that looks at synergy, jointness, integration, and the other actually as the Secretary of the newly created Department of Military Affairs. So definitely a big void that needs to be filled and done very, very quickly. How the government is going to go about it, we wouldn't want to speculate. We wouldn't want to throw in names that, these people could be the front runners at this point of time. We all know who are the people who are, senior enough and meritorious. A big task, theaterization was a big task that General Rawat took it upon himself. It wasn't the government that thrust it upon him, but that was his vision. He convinced the government. He was trying to convince the services. Yes, there were differences. Often there were controversies revolving around it. But General Rawat was always transparent, spoke about these things publicly. In fact, at an India Today platform, General Rawat said that, the Air Force is a support arm. When there was a discussion about the theaterization, that's when there was some controversy. It made big headlines, but that did not deter him. We spoke to him, personally about what he feels about the controversy, and he said that he doesn't look at it as a controversy because whatever he's talking in public domain, the similar discussions are going on in the military circles because this is something that needs to be done. It's been pending for very long. And in fact, I remember very clearly, Shiv, the day he took over as the Chief of Defence Staff, he made a very pertinent point when journalists asked him, how does he intend to go about theaterization because there is a lot of resistance within the military. So he very clearly said that, India can have its own model. He said we don't need to ape the West on having a theatre command model. We can have our own system, our own procedures, and that's something that he was looking at. He was getting support from some quarters. There were certain concerns, but it was taken all in the right spirit at the end of the day. And there is nobody, Shiv, nobody in the military circles who says that integration and jointness is not the way forward. It's just that there are divergent, differing views on how it should be done. So now that the template has been set and General Rawat is no more with us, I'm sure this legacy of his that he leaves behind will, in fact, be done over with as early as possible, and there'll be something fruitful in what we'll soon see as India having one of the biggest military reforms since independence. His appointment till now is the biggest military reform, but if we get anywhere close to theaterization, that will be a befitting salute to General Rawat.
Abhishek, stay with me as we continue to ask the questions and also inform our viewers about the next steps, because the ceremonies, the sad, sorrowful, painful ceremonies are now drawing to a close for General Bipin Rawat and Mrs. Madhulika Rawat. Ceremonies will take place for all of the other people who are on board that helicopter. Brigadier Liddar's ceremony happened earlier this morning. He was a military advisor to General Rawat. But I also want to keep your focus looking ahead, viewer, because on India Today we also want to never ever deviate from asking the right questions and also giving you a sense of what lies ahead. India is picking up the pieces, but here are the 5 things that India will be doing next. Appoint India's next Chief of Defence Staff. It's a sad task, but it has to be done because General Bipin Rawat is no longer there. His successor has to be appointed. Step 2. It has to complete the chopper crash investigation, the court of inquiry on time. The Indian Air Force has said that it will be an expeditious inquiry, but it has to happen on time because the public, the families are owed an answer. Step number 3, ensure care and protection for the families. You've seen many of these families out there. They are the epitome of grace, composure, dignity amidst this devastating and shattering sorrow. They must be protected, and the military always does. I'm only mentioning it because people would like to know about that. Step number 4, revisit protocols for VVIP flights if needed. Let's call a spade a spade. Does this disaster necessitate a revisiting of VIP flight protocols? If it is necessary, if experts advise so, then that is also going to be a next step. And finally, ensure continuity in defense modernization. All of the important projects that General Bipin Rawat was doing as the Chief of Defence Staff, there has to be a priority by the government that there is no stoppage, no pause, no halt, no slackening in momentum in those very, very important projects that he was leading and spearheading as Chief of Defence Staff. Abhishek, that's one of the big concerns